Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Movement and Performance Podcast, where it is my goal to help people get active and to reconnect with their body. Today, I have with me Jan Prins. He is the director of the Aquatics Research Lab in the University of Hawaii, along with being a faculty member in the Department of Kinesiology. In addition, he also has a journal where he is the founder and editor, the Journal of Swimming Research. Do I have all that right?
Yes, the Journal of Swimming Research now has, after 25 years, now merged with another journal at the American Swimming Coaches Association.
So it sounds to me like you're the man when it comes to swimming biomechanics. But
Very kind.
yeah. But today we're going to be talking about the freestyle stroke in particular. And, anybody pretty much who is, whether you're a competitive swimmer or even just a recreational swimmer who wants to be more efficient. Like I know myself, I love to nerd out on movement and, really just the efficiency of movement. How can I become a better mover? So this is all about swimming and freestyle, the freestyle stroke today. So I'm going to hand it over to you. This is going to be a little bit unique, just so the audience knows. This episode may be a little bit better to watch on YouTube because there'll be some visuals, although we'll do some explaining as best as we can. But I'm going to let you take the lead for the bulk of this, and then I'm going to step in and ask some questions towards the end. So are we good to go? Is there anything on your end?
Yes, we're great, Anthony. Well, again, thank you for the invitation. Lovely to be here. And I should start by saying aloha.
Aloha from Hawaii, huh?
From Hawaii. So, first of all, before I share the screen, I have to say the reason we're talking about freestyle primarily is that's the primary stroke used by anybody, distance swimmers, triathletes, and recreation swimmers. I mean, they may use some other strokes occasionally, but this is the primary stroke. So the focus this morning is going to be on freestyle and how things have developed. So let me go to full screen here. And this is where we are. So let's first, and your first question was excellent. You wanted to know what the primary requirements for efficient swimming were. And so that's what we're going to hit first. So let's go on here. Now, for efficient swimming, this starts from the beginning. You have to learn to float properly in the water. And this takes priority over everything. And it starts with a flutter kick. So I'm going to show you two pictures, and then I'm going to show you some video. Here's the first picture. Lying flat, close to the surface. We call that body position. Then we call the body orientation is how straight you're lying. You can lie flat on top of the water, but if you're not traveling in a straight line, that also compromises what's going on. So what I'm going to do, Anthony, is I'm going to show, first of all, a wonderful video. It has absolutely nothing to do with swimming, but everything to do with moving forward without being slowed down. In this case, of course, this guy is being slowed down by air. And if you take that into times 100 in the water, you can imagine. So this is a wonderful demonstration of what we call drag force. So I'm going to play.
Yep. If anybody happens to be listening, so this is a video of bicyclists, and there's one bicycle rider who's laying flat on his seat, and it looks like he's trying to avoid the wind drag.
Exactly. You have it. So watch this. I mean, the music is a little loud, so I'm going to lower the volume a little bit, but they will see what happens.
So he's flying ahead of everybody, it looks like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Isn't that a wonderful demonstration?
It's a wonderful demonstration of efficiency and drag force. Yeah.
Exactly. He has eliminated drag force by not doing anything except lying nice and streamlined. And everybody else, his buddies are pedaling furiously, but he's just cruising right past them. Now, if you take that, I said, by a factor of, I don't care, you give 20, 50 in the water, you can imagine how the water will slow somebody down. If air can do this kind of drag force, you can imagine what water is. So I'm going to show a little bit of footage from my video on demand program. It's called Freestyle Biomechanics, but I'm going to show some footage as we talk along. And this is the very first one. This is section 1. So I'm going to show you body position and body orientation.
The orientation have significant impacts on reducing resistive drag forces. We start with body position. Body position deals with the location of the hips relative to the surface. The primary goal of good body position is to first provide a stable base for exerting propulsive forces. The second is to minimize resistance by lying as close to the surface as possible. Let's examine what factors influence body position. The first is an efficient flutter kick, with the heels rhythmically brushing the surface. Second factor is the swimmer's body type. The more muscular we are, the harder we have to work to lie close to the surface. Body orientation and alignment. This deals with holding a streamlined position. Ideally, we should try to minimize the frontal profile. When observed from below, the body should appear to lie in a straight line. Stroke defects associated with body position and body orientation. Defect number 1, low body position. This is one of the most common areas needing attention. One reason is an ineffective flutter kick. In both these examples, we see the hips resting low in the water. The second reason is constantly holding the head too high, or lifting the head up to breathe. And we need to remember that arching the back can also result in a low body position. Defect number 2, poor body orientation and alignment. Inability to hold the body in a straight line. We see here an example of poor body orientation and alignment. Conscious, deliberate body roll can result in the torso and legs drifting laterally. Body roll will be discussed.
So we're going to discuss body roll a little bit later. It's not going to be in section 5. This is from the actual video program. But this is a triathlete. And he was told to consciously roll his body. So you can see what the effect is. It's very dramatic. And we'll go over that.
And
So
just 2 questions for you. I know we'll do some questions at the end, and I won't interrupt too much. But is the body roll also is helping him to be more narrow? Because it seems like the wider that someone is, the more drag they're going to have as well.
yes, and so body roll. What happens is when you consciously roll your body, Anthony, you have to stabilize the roll by. It's just like a fin of a canoe of a paddle. You have to stick something out in order to stop the body from continuing to roll, and that's why body roll is not a good idea. It requires a stabilizing effect, and the stabilizing effect clearly interrupts frontal drag. Because otherwise, if you don't stick your leg out and you can roll and you can be off balance, and that'll be it,
So you would actually advise against the roll?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. But I'm going to approach this. I'm going to approach it in the video because we're going to start with a very good question. I'm going to ask, and we may as well talk about it now. My 2 questions is, do freestylers' bodies roll?
Right.
Or do freestylers roll their bodies? It's a very clear answer. Freestylers' bodies do roll because of what they do. But conscious body rolling is what we're not advising.
Mm. Mm.
So the difference is not too subtle when you think about it.
Right. No, that actually, I understand that to some degree. So as you're consciously trying to roll,
You have
I
to,
know you said it, but if you could repeat it, what's happening to the body that we don't want?
well, you don't want, if you consciously roll your body starts to rotate and it loses its stability. And in order to stabilize, just like the fin of
I
a
see.
paddleboat, you have
Yeah.
to engage this. And we'll talk about that when we get to body roll. So is this working to see the full screen and stuff?
Yep.
These are the recent changes. Your next question was great because you said, what's happening now? How has stroke developed to where people are now swimming faster? And this is what I said, observe the recent changes in freestyle underwater pull patterns. Why freestylers are swimming faster? So I call that focus one. So here we are. Focus one, we start by saying, here's what people were doing before. Before recent developments, coaches and swimmers would promote the sculling or elliptical pull patterns. This is freestyle. People were taught to do this. They were encouraged to scull outward and inward, like an inverted question mark. That was the classic, path. And you can see that in backstroke, it was the same thing. And in butterfly, it was even more. We call it the keyhole pull. So you can see lots of inward and outward sculling movements. We don't do that anymore. The only stroke that we do this is breaststroke, because that requires sculling with the arms and legs, but not in these three strokes. So the current
How would you define sculling? Sorry.
sculling is making these elliptical paths with the hands, moving in and out, just like you see these drawings. You see that?
Yep, I see it.
They're very elliptical. So the recommendation now is to push the water in more of a backward direction. The emphasis on propulsive drag force. Now, what in the world is propulsive drag? This is a very good example of propulsive drag. You want to go forward, you push back. There's no question. So,
like a runner, just like a sprinter.
a sprinter, you push back, except we're dealing with the water.
Right.
And on land, the ground doesn't move. But in this case, it does. So there's some caveats to this. And here's a very good quote. This guy, Barry Bixler. He had kids on the swimming team. He's passed away, but he was very, very well known engineer, hydrodynamic engineer. And this is what he said: regardless of the stroke angle which the arm is moving, keep the palm of the hand facing directly towards the feet to maximize propulsion, which is opposite to what we were doing before with the sculling. So the early positioning of the palm start as early as the catch. So this is still a freeze frame of Caleb Dressel, the guy who won 5 gold medals at the last Olympics. Can you see his palm facing backwards? I'm going to show some video, and we can scrub through the video, and people will see this actually happening. So here is from the Tokyo Olympics. I'm going to actually play some of this, and then I'll slow it down. This is slow motion. I slowed this down. Can you see how their palms are facing back?
Yeah.
Right at the beginning, right? Watch Caleb up here on the top, closest to the camera.
Yeah.
Can you see how his palms are facing back?
Yeah.
And look at the guy next to him, and you see he's going to do the same thing, right? Right there. So that is now the drag forces that we get from swimming is what making us swim faster. Now I'm going to scrub a little bit further so they can see some of the ladies right here. And you can see exactly the same thing. Watch the second girl right here. You see how her palms are facing back? And watch the girl at the top here? Right there. And I'm going to slow it down. I'm going to watch this here. And watch her hands here. Look at that.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
So the emphasis is on propulsive drag, pushing the water back. Now, as I said, there's some things we have to be careful about. And that is two things. One is to do this successfully, you have to apply the force for as long as possible. It's not some brief, quick movement. You got to do it as long as possible, and that's why we'll talk about impulse.
Mm.
And then I'm going to show you Katie Ledecky, one of the greatest freestylers in the world right now, and that's one of it. So people will know. Everybody's heard of Katie. See her palms facing back?
Mm.
You can also see her body position. See, she's very high on top of the water. She doesn't need to kick because she floats so well for the distance events. And when she goes faster, she'll obviously kick a little faster.
Mm.
But look at her palms facing back. So here's what we're saying. Engage the water, direct it backwards, and find new water. That's a buzzword that coaches are using now. And
Mm.
finding new water is making sure that when you first start the water and the water resists, the palms should feel the pressure of the water all the time, which is not going to happen if you keep pushing back for too long.
Mm.
And the caveat, if you pull a lot of air, that resistance will drop because bubbles, air does not provide as much resistive force. So I'm going to show you a video here. And again, I'm going to scrub and bring the swimmer closer, and you can see this is too much air.
Mm.
Yeah. That's not as effective because that water is not resisting the palms.
Mm.
And then I'm going to show you what we should avoid doing. And this is very easy to get sucked into, and that is going straight back for too long. If you push straight back for too long, you don't get the resistance because the water is starting to move out of the way.
Mm.
And that's the problem people have to be careful of. So we have a very good, see, as I said, once a force is applied to the water, it will result in the mass of water moving, resulting in a loss of resistive drag force.
Mm.
So you cannot go directly in a straight line. You have to guide your hands. Now, here's the example here. This is a very good example. A paddle steamer. Why does a paddle steamer work? Is because these veins are each catching new water. This water is being pushed back, and then when this vein gets into the water, it has new water that's engaging. That's why it works.
Mm.
And here's what happened. And I don't have we don't have any record of this, but apparently there was an investor who talked people into investing in a paddle steamer that looked like this. Instead of a circular one, he thought that if you push the water for longer, the paddle steamer is going to move further.
Mm.
And so the story goes that he made it and had everybody come down, and he started the engine motor, and the paddle steamer didn't move because once that water was moving, it was not providing any resistance.
Mm.
That's why you have to have fresh water as you're pulling. And how do you do that in swimming is this, what we call, be aware of the pressure of the water on the palms. So good swimmers feel the pressure of the water on their palms all the time.
Do they move as they're stroking backward?
Oh,
Are they
yeah.
kind of like slightly moving the hand to find more water
That's
or
a very
more new
subtle
water?
thing. That's very subtle. You have to, and
Mm.
I'm going to show you a video of that. Now,
Mm.
the analogy is climbing. See, you want to grab and have that not moving while you're pulling your body over when you're mountain climbing. Of course, that's not going to happen in the pool. The
Right.
water is going to move. And so I'm going to show you a video clip, and I'm going to call it Finding New Water. What we've done is we have put a grid on this so you can see what the new water looks like. So here we go. Okay, so here we are. This is a world-class swimmer, and we're tracking her palms. I figured out a way we call it video trails in order to track. But can you see how, as her hands move, it's moving through a different cell on the grid. So she's actually holding new water. You see that?
Wow,
So
yeah.
each of those cells is different water. Does that make sense?
It definitely makes sense.
And
Wow,
that's
so
what
it's like these just slight minor
absolutely
adjustments.
exactly, and that's what good swimming is. And again, it's up to the swimmer themselves to feel these pressures, Anthony, in the water. You can't teach somebody.
Right.
You can
Yeah,
tell them about it, but you really can't teach them.
it sounds very intuitive, which is one of the beautiful things about movement is it requires you to be in tune with your body. But yeah,
Exactly.
you're constantly just feeling and making that minor adjustment. It's not this pre-thought. That would take way too much time, and it's just on the spot feeling.
Exactly. Well said. And you can see that the more advanced the swimmers are, the less they really have to think about it, because it starts to be intuitive. That's an excellent way to put it. And so, good. I'm glad it's obvious that as she's
Makes
pulling, she's
sense.
engaging water in different, cells on the grid. All right.
So
So,
one more quick question. Sorry.
so
So the hand wants more drag force,
absolutely.
and the body or the head and the torso would want less drag force.
Correct, because the hand is
Yeah.
pulling the body through the water.
Right. That's
But
the
you want
worker.
to make your body as streamlined as possible.
Yeah, makes sense.
Now, here's a very good demonstration, and this can be done no matter what level of swimmer you are. And you stand in the pool at sternal mid-chest depth, okay? And you start by bending your elbows at 90 degrees and pushing straight back. You just go straight back. The body will hardly move. It might move a little bit because of the beginning, but the body will be fairly stationary because you're pushing straight back. Then, at the same depth, simulate a pull with a more obtuse angled elbow bend. That is just like we talked about. And you'll see the body start to surge forward. And that's a wonderful way for people to be aware of the differences between pulling straight back and actually engaging the water. And anybody can do it. You just stand, obviously, you don't want to put one foot in front of the other. You stand with your feet parallel and then do these two maneuvers, and you'll see the difference will be very stark.
This is great.
Well, thank you. All right, now, here's a further reminder again. I'm showing them another quote from a journal. Pronounced sculling motion reduce the thrust production. So it says strokes designed to produce drag-based propulsion showed markedly higher thrust. Those 3 strokes: freestyle, backstroke, and butterfly. Lift-based propulsion techniques result in a reduction in drag force, and lift meaning all that sculling action. In other words, sculling motion reduced the thrust production. So there's no question. And this was a very fancy journal. So you might have people talking about this S-PO. That's what people would be teaching. That's what that sculling action was referred to as. Your hand like an S. And the problem with that is that they were trying to, and when you look at a picture of somebody going like this, they were looking at a 3D motion when looking at it in 2D. When you look at something on a flat piece of paper or a screen, and it looks like it's elliptical like this, it's because it's being viewed in 2D. But the movement is actually taking place in 3D. And that was the mistake. But I'll talk about it later. So here's the misunderstood S-PO. And actually, this is part of the chapters in
Section 9.
the chapters. So I'm going to scrub a little bit, Anthony. And
Yep.
these are elite swimmers. You see, it looks very elliptical, right?
Yep.
But that's not what they're doing. They're not consciously moving their hands back and forth. This is a 2D depiction of what's actually taking place in 3D. Here's a swimmer from the Olympics. See? He's not consciously moving his hands. We are just looking at it in 2D. That's what the mistake was. Telling people to do that. So, and here is the
Consciously traced
first
S-PO on
and
hip.
again, I'll explain how we do this very soon, but this is the research that I did for 22 years using high-speed cameras with motion capture software, we can interface the video with the graph. And this is velocity. This is the swimmer moving in real time. So we're going to watch the swimmer coming in and see what happens when they scull out. And you can see, you can predict what's going to happen, right?
Oh, yeah.
Watch this here now. There's the bar. And watch, as soon as the swimmer's hands start to scull out, look at the velocity. Isn't that amazing?
Mm.
And that's why the S pull doesn't work. Because as you start to pull out sideways, your hip velocity drops.
The velocity's dropping.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then it goes back up once they come in. See, now we're starting to push back, and you can see how the velocity is going back up now.
Mm.
So again, we didn't invent this thing, Anthony. This is what we saw.
Mm.
We couldn't predict this. We used the tools, and now we can interpret what the heck's going on.
Right.
Is that pretty clear? You think the audience
Yeah.
will?
Oh, yeah. I think that's great. And I love the videos, and I love the, 2D versus 3D is a big deal.
Great.
So,
Okay, so now I'm going to go on.
Section 9.
So why now? Here's the other big thing. The big change is we would tell people that they need to pull at 90 degrees. That was what the recommendation was. And it was well-intentioned, which I will show why. I will show why it was well-intentioned.
mm.
But swimmers aren't doing that. They're not swimming with 90-degree elbow bend. This is a picture of a swimmer, and I put this in because I want to say 90-degree elbow bend has been the preferred model for decades. Reason for this recommendation is when we're trying to overcome a fixed resistance, and you understand this, out of the water and in the water, we bend our elbows to reduce the internal demands on our shoulders, right? That's why we bend our elbow, because we want to lessen the
torque, right?
Yeah, to lessen the torque on our shoulders. So we bend our elbows.
Mm.
Same
So
thing.
that's an injury prevention piece.
Correct.
Mm.
Pulling a weight. Why the heck are we bending our elbows? Because we have a lot of the internal torque has to be lessened.
Mm.
We ask kids to get out of the pool. What do? They bend their elbows and hoist themselves out of the pool.
Mm.
But, and here's the big problem, why are we now swimming with more obtuse angles? So I said here first, elite freestylers are and have for many years instinctively chosen to hold their arms at an obtuse angle. And here's the time mode adage: swimmers swim faster in spite of their coaches. Can we make a joke about it? But it's true. You know?
Yeah, they know when they're doing it.
Exactly. So here's a swimmer, world-class swimmer coming, and this swimmer is definitely not swimming at 90 degrees.
Definitely more obtuse.
Yeah, absolutely. So what is going on here? Why is that the case? Why are we swimming at obtuse? Because we need
more drag.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the key point is that water is not a fixed resistance. It's not like the side of a pool or a weight or a box or whatever. The water is different. So we have to come up with a different way to think this through. And what is that is when propulsive drag forces, the key factor is velocity. And this is the drag force, this is the formula. I mean, you'll appreciate this. You can edit this out for your viewers if you think. But when the velocity goes up, the drag force goes up. And guess what? When you extend your elbows, your hands are moving at a higher velocity. That's just angular motion. You know this. That's why we keep our arms straight when we're serving in tennis or whatever. Because the linear velocity is higher.
Yeah.
The angular velocity is the same, but the linear velocity is higher. And that's why you keep your elbows at a little more obtuse angle.
I think about it sorry to cut you real quick. When I was a kid, sticking my hand out the window, right? When we're on a road trip with parents,
right.
The more you stick the hand out and the straighter your arm is, the more your hand's blowing back, and the closer you bend, the less, and you'd play with that feeling of the resistance of the wind. And that's exactly what you're talking about, is the more extended my arm is, or the more obtuse the angle is, the more resistance I have. And you need that drag resistance in order to propel forward.
And when you're moving your hands straighter, your arms are moving faster because of because the linear velocity is higher. And this is why sprinters are much more obtuse. Look at this. These are the two world-class sprinters that we worked with. Look at their elbow bend.
Wow. It's pretty straight. Or
Yes.
close to.
Right. Now, here's the problem with this. Again, there is always a caveat. The cost of swimming with extended arms, additional demands are placed on the shoulder muscles when pulling with the elbows. And this is why we say the recommendation for triathletes and distance swimmers, stay at the lower end of the obtuse angle. So instead of being at 160 degrees, we want to be a little bit less. And that is the recommendation we have for all these distance swimmers and the majority of your audience. Unless they're interested in sprinting, which I doubt, they have but they have to be more of an obtuse angle. There's additional caution. When the elbows are flexed at 90 degrees, the hand is more likely to follow a straight line path. So now, Anthony, I am running up into a time frame. So what we can do, I'm happy to continue with this, right? Because I thought there was an audience, live audience, but since there isn't, if you want to schedule another time, we can continue.
This will be part one. That's perfect. I know you have you're out in 3 minutes here. So let's pause it here. We'll take another day where we get to record part two. But let me see if I could briefly sum up what you just said. I mean, we kind of did with that hand piece there, but we talked about pretty much mostly increasing the drag when it comes to your
pushing the water more. Yes.
Yeah.
Facing back with the palms rather than trying to scull back and forth and do all that.
Right. Yeah. And we're talking about, efficient movement here. And then it comes with a fine balance of push and pull with most things in life, right? It's like, as you're becoming better with performance, you also run the risk of potential injury. We're finding this fine line of how can we be super powerful, but also efficient enough where we're not hurting our shoulder. And you're finding that sweet spot.
Exactly. And because the largest problem with brave swimmers is swimmer's shoulder. That's bicipital tendonitis. And so that's because of repeated internal rotation. But no, we can talk about that as we go along. So Anthony, why don't we chat over there and figure out what's a good time? But is this what you're looking for? I mean,
yes, this is exactly, anything to help people become more efficient swimmers. Again, whether you're recreational or whether you're an athlete, to me, it's the same. The difference between the athlete and the recreational person is the athlete might have been blessed with some genetic gifts and they might practice more than the average, but the efficiency is still the same when it comes to movement.
Swimming is a learned skill. The more you are, the closer you'll be able to get your golf score down.
That's right. All right. So we'll hold it right here. This will be part one. That'll be great. And it's a nice tease for everyone. And then we'll definitely get another day really soon.
Super. Well, delighted to do this, Anthony.
By the way, last thing before you go, I don't know if you could still see me. I know you're in Hawaii. I put these shades in my bag just because I knew you were going to comfort the sun.
But you can see I put my aloha shirt on for the occasion.
I love it. I love it. So thank you so much. We'll get another day soon.
Yeah, lovely to connect. We'll talk soon.
All right, Jan. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.